Greetings. In this video, this is a continuation of my AutoCAD certification videos, and that's user certification. And this video will cover drawing with accuracy, which consists of working with grid and snap, using object snap tracking, using coordinate systems. And hopefully I can get all three of those in one video without taking forever. In this video, I'm going to try to keep it under 15 minutes, maybe even under 10 minutes, and I'm not doing any good if I sit here and just keep chattering. But you'll open up a new window of AutoCAD. Alrighty, and first on that list, drawing with accuracy, is working with grid and snap. I'm going to erase this that I was playing with earlier. Okay, working with grids. Now typically I don't work with grids. You can turn grids on and off right here in the status bar. Click on that little grid icon and you turn your grids on, which you probably can't see my grids on this screen. I typically don't work with grids because at this higher resolution it just does not work well with the application. So I usually work with grids off. But I'm going to keep those on. If you can see them, great. If you can't, don't worry about it, because I'm going to turn something else on in the status bar that's right next to the grid icon, and this one's just like a bunch of dots in series, and it's called snap mode. Now this turns grid snapping on and off, just the grid snapping. So, and you can also click on this arrow next to it and change some of the settings regarding that snapping. If I click on snap settings, you see that it gives me the X spacing and the Y spacing, and these are increments. So as you move your cursor with your geometry attached to it, it will kind of snap to each increment. Currently set at 0.5. So every 0.5 unit or every half a unit, it will snap. You can do polar snapping as well, as you saw over here on this menu that there was a selection for polar snap, and you would turn that on right here to get your polar snaps. But I don't usually work with polar snaps. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to turn my snaps on, and it's real easy to see how this works. I'm going to start a line, and as you see, as I pull the line to the right, that it does snap every half unit, and it just kind of locks into that position to help you draw more accurately. Okay, now that's pretty much the gist of the grid snapping. So let's turn grid snapping off and grids off and go over to our next one. Now this is restrict cursor to specified angles, and this is kind of like a snapping function. And if I click on the menu arrow, then I get these options, and these are different degree increments that I can have my cursor snap to. So if I click it on this one, 15, 30, 45, 60, you actually see that green guideline pop up on my screen basically every 15 degrees. Okay, and that comes in useful sometimes, depending on what you're doing. So let's put that back. I typically use it at 90, 180, 270, unless something else I need to do. Now, of course, you can always type the degree of movement in there as well, just by typing it into your dynamic input. You see where it currently says 33 degrees, and I click on my tab button to get over to that box, and then I can type 45 and enter, and now the line locks in at 45 degrees. And let's look at this tool. It says show snapping reference line. That's that green line that keeps popping up when I go to one of those snap locations. And then the next box is snap cursor to 2D reference points. So snapping the cursor to 2D reference points, how does that work? Well, let's say I'm drawing a line, and first off, let me click on the menu bar, or the little menu button, menu arrow, and you see that you can turn these on and off. And you'll do that a lot as you're designing, and the more intricate your design is, the more often you'll have to turn these on and off. Okay, but I'm going to lock on to the end of this, and now I'm drawing, as you can see. And let's say I want this line to be the same distance, or basically to be equal with the horizontal of that line. And as you see, I've got that guideline turned on, and it will snap to that location every time. And you see the green horizontal line popping up. Okay, now that's an interesting trick here to using AutoCAD, is you can turn these little guides on and off as you're going. Right now, that tracking for that particular point, that object snap, is on. I can turn that object snap off simply by hovering over it a second time, and now that snap is turned off. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back on, and no matter where I go, I can go all over the place over here, and I can still snap right there onto that horizontal position. Okay, now I can also, I don't have to just use endpoints. I can use other intersections. I can use midpoints, and of course I always pay attention to the icon. And here the endpoint shows up as a square, the midpoint shows up as a triangle. There's a couple other shapes that you'll see that will let you know that you are locked in to that particular geometric position. So if I want to lock in right there, I can draw my line this way. Okay, so that is how objects snap. And again, you can snap to any object on your screen, any intersection, any center point, you name it. And let's see, so that really takes care of object snaps, I think. Can't think of anything else to put with that. But the next would be the coordinate system, and the way the coordinate system works. And it works just like any, X, Y, and even Z coordinate system would work, if you remember from math class. But right now I'm in quadrant 1. This is the quadrant where all the numbers are positive. And then of course, if I zoom out, I can go in here to quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. This is your home location, your home point. And that's basically what everything is based off of, especially those first geometric points. So if I'm drawing a line, and it says specify first point, and you see in the dynamic input boxes out to the right, it says 8.805 and then 6.7215. That is your XY coordinates. You can type in a coordinates and go to a specific coordinate, but you don't have to do that. But what it's referencing right now, it is referencing that home point right here, right there between X, Y. It is referencing that point. Now once I place a line, or a start point, and I start to draw the line, it is now referencing that first point. So this becomes a relative coordinate versus a Cartesian coordinate or a system coordinate. So everything I do here is based off of that last point. Now I can enter other points by the user coordinate system or the Cartesian coordinate, and I have to just click on a different tool, and I forget, to be honest with you, I forget what it is. Oh yeah, I think I have to turn off dynamic input. So let's turn off dynamic input and see how this works. So I'm going to place a line, and now moving the line, you can see down in my status bar it's showing the coordinates that I want right there. Now I can type coordinates. Right now it's going strictly by coordinate system. It's not going by any other relative coordinates or anything of that nature. So if you look down at the bottom, it says 9 point something and then 11 point something. Well, let's say I type in 12 comma. Now everything I'm doing now is showing up in the command line down at the bottom. So I just type that 12 in there, then comma 15. Okay, so it's going to take the next point to 12 and 15. Okay, now that isn't a measurement, that is a coordinate. It is a comes from the coordinate system that is in the software. Let's say the next point I want to be, let's say X, I want it to be 20, comma, and let's say comma 12, 15, let's say 13. Okay, so there we got our next point. There is a test question that will actually have you do this, so make sure that you remember how this is done, and you can of course send me a message if you need further instruction on doing that. If I turn dynamic coordinates back on, or dynamic input here, then of course I don't have to put my commands down in the command line. I can put them right in the screen. And again, those coordinates you see right now are relative to this last point. Okay, only the first point is relative to the user coordinate system. And that is all I have regarding the user coordinates and snaps and all that other kind of good stuff and tracking. All right, so again, email me or put a message below the video if you have a question.